Many years after Hatshepsut ruled, another pharaoh would rule for 9 years and then be almost completely forgotten for 3,000 years. His name was Tutankhamen, although today he is known all over the world as King Tut. Tutankhamen was only 9 years old when he became pharaoh, and he died when he was only 19. We are not sure why he died at such an early age. After his death, some thought he may have had some sort of accident. When he died, he was not buried in a pyramid like the pharaohs in Hatshepsut's time. Instead, during King Tut's time, pharaohs were buried in the hillsides of a valley. That valley was called the Valley of the Kings. None of the tombs of the pharaohs in the Valley of the Kings were marked. Tombs are places where people are buried after they die. So in an unmarked tomb in that valley, Pharaoh Tutankhamen would rest, surrounded by treasure and forgotten by the world for nearly 33 centuries, a very long time ago. You heard the word treasure in an earlier story. What does the word treasure mean? It means something valuable. Now we will jump way ahead in time from ancient Egypt to a time closer to today. Almost 100 years ago, a British archaeologist named Howard Carter was interested in trying to find the lost tombs in the Valley of the Kings. An archaeologist is a scientist who studies the way people lived in the past by looking at what they left behind, such as tools or pottery. Carter's partner was a British nobleman, Lord Carnarvon. Carnarvon was also interested in finding the lost tombs in the Valley of the Kings. Over the next few years, working for and often accompanied by Lord Carnarvon, Carter found a number of ancient objects scattered throughout the valley, but he had in mind a greater prize. What greater prize do you think Carter had in mind? Think about the main idea of this story. What place are we talking about? And what valuable things do you think might be found there? Another archaeologist found objects that had hieroglyphs written on them, mentioning Pharaoh Tutankhamen. Howard Carter was determined to find the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamen, and was convinced that somewhere in the Valley of the Kings lay Tutankhamen's hidden burial site. Could he find it? Remember, the location of Tutankhamen's tomb had been forgotten long ago. Do you think Carter will be able to find King Tut's tomb? Let's find out. Trying to find the location of the tomb was not always easy or safe. Robbers often showed up to steal any valuable objects, whenever they heard of new discoveries. Valuable means precious or worth a lot of money, like treasure. In a book about his career, archaeologist Howard Carter wrote about one dangerous encounter with such thieves in the Valley of the Kings. A band of robbers had learned of a discovery, and on a moonlit night the thieves crept through the shadows of the valley, determined to steal whatever they could carry away. But just as they were starting to gather the loot, a second band of robbers appeared with the same idea. Instantly, the two gangs attacked one another in a fierce battle there in the moonlight amid the burial sites of the ancient pharaohs. The second gang chased off the first, but Howard Carter in his nearby camp heard the noise of their fight. Here is how he calmly described what happened next. I collected the few of my workmen still nearby and set out for the scene of action, an expedition involving a climb of more than 1,800 feet over the hills in the moonlight. It was midnight when we arrived on the scene. The guide pointed out to me the end of a rope dangling down the face of a cliff. Listening, we could hear the robbers actually at work. I first cut their rope, cutting off their means of escape. Then, making secure a good, stout rope of my own, I lowered myself down the cliff. There were 8 robbers at work, and when I neared the bottom, there was an awkward moment or two. Eventually, the robbers saw reason and departed. The rest of the night I spent guarding the spot. Why do you think Howard Carter stayed to guard the spot? Keep in mind that earlier in the story there was more than one group of robbers. I think he was probably trying to guard the spot in case either those robbers came back or another group of robbers came. For 6 years, archaeologist Howard Carter searched for the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamen. Carter and Lord Carnarvon had focused their attention on one area in the Valley of the Kings. All that was left was the ground beneath some huts in which ancient workers had lived while digging the royal tombs. Carter decided to give this area one last try. He and his men removed the huts and leveled off the soil below. As Carter finished removing the first of the workers' huts, he found something very exciting. For there, lost to the world for nearly 33 centuries, and almost overlooked by Carter and his partner Carnarvon in 6 years of digging, was a stone staircase leading down into the rocky floor of the valley. Where do you think the stone staircase leads? How do you think Howard Carter feels? Carter and his men uncovered the steps one by one until, as they cleared the dirt from the top of the 12th step, they saw beyond it, in Carter's own words, the upper part of a doorway. Atop the door was a hieroglyphic seal, showing that the door had been sealed shut under royal authority. Authority is power to make rules or laws and make sure people follow them. In this sentence, the word seal means an official mark. Whoever had been buried here was either royal or someone very important to the pharaoh. Almost overcome with excitement, Carter cut a small hole in the door and shone a light through the hole. Inside, he saw a hallway filled to the top with rocks. It took all his self-control not to break through and begin flinging the rocks out. Instead, leaving some of his men to guard the place, he covered the door up again and rode off through the moonlight, thinking anything might lie beyond that passage or hallway. Yet none of them was exactly sure what Carter had found.